Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigor Mortis.
You okay, buddy?
It's just such a sad creepypasta.
It'll be okay. Just one recording and then it'll be gone. You can purge your memory banks. I mean, you're not a robot.
And I'm review cultist.
Yes, you are.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stores, most creepy and most pasta. You can get through this.
And being critically silly while doing it.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
No problem. I got you back.
And tonight we're recording, or tonight tonight we're discussing. There is a dog living in a seemingly abandoned house.
Yes.
All right, hang on. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, let's try and get through this. So there's a dog living in a seemingly abandoned house. First off, a bit of a mouthful of a title.
No sleep title, right?
It's except it's not a no sleep.
Oh, I know. I'm saying it's a no sleep like title.
Yeah, for sure. But this one's by Cainmak, who we did a game of tag before, and then they listened to our episode and replied back, and then suggested this one and the one about the baby being wrong, like a week or two ago.
Yep.
So yeah, I suppose we'll dive into this one. With the rundown. Nair lives on the outskirts of town and passes an abandoned house on his way to and from school. There's a dog in the fenced yard of the abandoned house, and Nair grows attached to it very quickly. They go over several times with dog treats and food, even like over the course of like years. The dog Goliath is a gray Irish wolfhound that doesn't look very healthy, but soon becomes friends with Nair.
Also, Nair named him Goliath. He does not know his actual name.
Yeah.
Because he's a massive Irish wolfhound.
Exactly. Nair, it would have been really funny if Nair was actually named David or Dave.
Why?
Because Dave and Goliath.
Oh, I see.
That'd
be cool.
The analogy there, yeah.
I understand.
But for now, he's known as, or they are known as Narrator or Nair, since we don't actually get a name.
Narrator is not a name. Nair is potentially a name, so we call him Nair.
Narrator.
Mm-hmm.
Nair worried that the dog was all alone and stuck on the property, like maybe he's trapped there for some reason. And being a headstrong preteen, goes over one cold November evening while everyone is asleep and attempts to free Goliath. They hear the dog from behind the house and hop the fence to discover the basement door. First off, there's a basement door, it's like a latch, one of those, like I guess like a storm door or something. But I
imagine it's just one of those like old school basement entrances, like through the back.
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah. And yeah, it's open, and he's hearing barking from within, but the dog isn't coming closer, so he has to go deeper in. They find Goliath next to a couch with a human form lying on some bedsheet. Goliath
under some bed sheets.
Yeah, under some bed sheets. Goliath has been barking this whole time, so eventually the person does wake up and attacks Nair. Nair blacks out in very short order, without very little struggle, but then wakes up on a bed. He wakes up. Does he wake up on the bed sheets, or does he wake up on a separate bed?
He wakes up in a completely unknown room to him.
Okay, he wakes up in a bed, somewhere else in the house at sunrise, groggy and with blood on their shirt. No other memory of what occurred the previous evening. When they attempt to leave the house, they find that the person and Goliath are kind of in their way, or at least in view of them getting for the door. This rail-thin man who's chopping up hunks of wood with a cleaver for a happy Goliath. Yeah, sorry.
Goliath does not eat wood.
Did I say wood? Oh my god. Okay, hang on. Let me.
You're really fucked up from this, aren't you?
A little bit. Let me just let me do that sentence over. This rail-thin man who is chopping up hunks of meat for a happy Goliath in the kitchen. And the kitchen door is right there, so he could get escape, but he'd be he might take note of the man might take note of him. But without looking at Nair, he gives a hand gesture as if to say, go ahead, leave. And Nair takes it. Nair runs home, gets talked to by his parents, the cops. as they were out looking for him.
By his
And-
parents, comma, and
sorry,
the cop.
yes, sorry,
His
yes.
parents are not the entire police force,
Sorry,
unless they
get-
are.
Yeah. Nair runs home, gets talked to by his parents and the cops
There you
who were looking for him, and gets checked out by the doctors for some blood loss, because apparently he suffered some blood loss. Years go by, and this event really does affect Nair. They stop visiting Goliath and eventually move off to college, and everything kind of just blurs together, like that whole event. But it leaves kind of like a deep-rooted like insecurities with Nair. Then, years later, returning to their hometown, they stop by the house and discover that it is a demolished pile of ruin. However, at the back of the property, there is an unmarked grave, and that is the end of the story. So, I guess
because
we will...
Goliath buried the skinny guy after the skinny guy died.
Yep, that's definitely what happened.
Yeah, totally.
All right, on to... Everyone tolerates the grammar inquisitions at this point.
Are you okay, man?
We'll get into that.
All right.
Trust me, we'll get into that one.
I hope so.
So I'm gonna start with this this one here. From first grade to senior year, I took the same bus to school. Since I was driving the same route back and forth for over several years, I knew the exact blueprint of my neighborhood, how it changed, or rather, how stagnant it was. Okay, so that's one long sentence. Like, goddamn.
Mhm.
But also, I feel like you should replace the word driving with taking. Like, since you've been taking the same route, because since I was driving the same route, it just seems like you're driving the bus, not taking the bus.
We're driving a bike.
Or driving a bike, or riding a bike. It would be more, not drive.
Yeah, and that is 2 sentences.
Is it? Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, but that still that first or that second one is pretty long.
Yeah, well, kinda.
I guess. All right. It felt long when I was reading it. Okay.
All right.
On to my next one. I took one look to determine the place was abandoned. So this is kind of this is leaning a little bit into the It Story stuff territory, but maybe go with like this as an alternative for this sentence is like one look and I could determine the place was abandoned. Just so like, because for some reason as I was reading, I was like, it took one look to determine the place was abandoned. It just seemed like really weird when I read it. Like it seemed off. So,
Or it only took one glance, one look, whatever, to see that it was abandoned.
yeah, but then you also
Just
still have
missing something.
you still have the it at the front. Like
Yeah.
my initial go-to was it only took one look. Yeah, that was my go-to. But I was like, but wait, that still deals with the it, and Mikey's gonna have a problem with that. But yeah, so on to the next one here. Me, a scrawny preteen, could easily hide in his shadow when he propped his pawns against the fence. I think you need paws, not pawns, unless he's playing chess with the dog.
Of course he is.
Clearly,
Why wouldn't he?
I know, the best of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one here. Either way, I turned around, saw the reflection of my terrified pale face and the coach behind me. So I think you want the couch behind me, unless, of course, the scrawny man is in fact his coach from school.
And he somehow knew that.
Yeah, he somehow identified him.
Yep. Or just the being behind him is the coach from school.
Yes, but I think it's actually supposed to be couch, since
Yes.
that's the previously established thing behind him. Next up is Goliath started jumping after spotting me, then made a few circles around the room. So this one's a little bit harder to pinpoint when you read it, unless you actually like see the sentence. So spotting is just missing an extra T.
Oh, okay.
Spelling error. Next one here, though.
Love those here.
Next one here is when he raised his knife to cut another chunk, I could saw how sinewy his arms was.
His arms was or were?
His arm was. Sorry, his arm was.
Okay.
Yeah, I could saw how sinewy his arm was. So I think you need to remove. It needs to be. I could see how sinewy his arm was, not I could saw. And then my next one here, I looked at it for maybe a split second before I opened the back door and run like a madman across the lawn. Again, I think you mean you and ran like a madman across the lawn. And that's my grammar inquisitions. Just a lot of like words, like a lot of like the wrong words for like the tense that's going on in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a common problem.
Yeah. But yeah, Mikey, these days for you.
Well, I'm just thinking about the one that you had with when he raised his knife to cut another chunk. I could saw how sinewy his arm was, and I was like, "What if he's sawing off his own arm?"
That did come to mind as I was reading it this time around.
Mm-hmm. However, probably not happening.
Yeah,
No.
But it could be.
could be, but it's not. But it could be.
Anyway, so you've got a good chunk of what I have. So all I have left is the it story / conjunction junction.
Ooh. All right. And now a conjunction junction with a happy helping of an it story. Take it away.
It took one look to determine the place was abandoned. It took maybe 4 or 5 drives for me to become attached. It's hard to tell after so many years, but despite seeing him almost daily, twice during the school days, and sometimes changing the schedule because of personal reasons, I never saw any sign that Goliath had an owner. It was early November, I think, a cold one at that, so the whole neighborhood was wrapped in a veil of darkness and dead silence. Or it might have just been some reflective surface. It felt like the worst fever you could have ever imagined. It seemed really surreal at that time. It was the same type of meat my dad would buy at our local butcher's. It was an open hand or 2 raised fingers. I really can't tell. But sometimes, when I lay in bed in the middle of the night, I think of the hand sign and try to interpret it. And that was it. It was written off as a teenage escapade, and I didn't mind. It took me years to pick up my life again, especially since I never really knew what happened to me that night, or rather, the remains of it. It was demolished a few years prior with only mountains of bricks and the concrete foundation left. It felt so weird being there. Finn.
So this whole time, like from start to finish, I was like, so he's grown an attachment to a house.
Yep.
Because there's never mention of the dog with those sentences. So it's like,
no, never at all.
Created a whole story about a boy and his abandoned monster house.
Yep.
Which is a completely different creepypasta.
One which I would love to read.
Mm-hmm. As soon as the meat was brought up, immediately after that, there was mention of the hand.
Yeah, and suddenly this house had a hand.
Hands.
Oh God. From the local butcher, and then that's when he realized. Yeah. Oh God, that's when he realized that the local butcher's been like are actually cannibals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God! And it took his pet abandoned house to help him figure that out.
He took the house with him somehow.
Yeah. Oh no, the house helped him out. It's like oh God, so it's like a pet Dionysia house.
The body horror.
Yes. But honestly, this story was kind of a buddy horror.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, and I'll get into that a little bit more with my actual thoughts, but we're still in the grammar inquisition. So, Mikey, that's it then for you just got the conjunction junction.
Yep.
All right. Then Gamer, you got your highlighted grammar.
Yes. I used to live in the outskirts of a small town. 2 bigger streets crosswise and many yards of empty space in between the houses. So I didn't really get a full visualization of what they're trying to say here. Specifically, the 2 bigger streets crosswise. Like, what does that even mean?
I'm not. I think like
Is it like 2 bigger streets like they cross ways?
Because I mean there are
there's many yards in between the houses. Like
well, first off, we do know that Cainmak English is not their first language. So, but yeah, it is kind of it's I was trying. I was catching on that earlier, and I just went past it, like as I kind of just tried to my brain constructed an appropriate setting.
Pylons?
Yeah, sorry. Basically, it fabricated an appropriate setup that it thought would work for this. Kind of like how you have typo knees, like where you walk over,
Yeah.
you step over literal like typos and stuff when you're reading. My brain just
Mhm.
like constructs imagery like over from the information it gets,
Yeah.
so it can move on.
So with that information, did you just ignore the crosswise thing and it's just like it's a outskirts of a small town with lots of room in between the houses? Like
Yeah,
that's
basically, like there's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like there's like houses, and then it's like kind of like it's kind of like a development of some kind. So it's like a more rural development. So there's like forest or or a lot more property between the houses, and then like
yeah.
I guess like the larger like roads are just like the main roads versus like the smaller like kind of development roads. But
I guess.
yeah, that's how my brain constructed it. But yeah,
How did you see
it is
Mikey?
confusing.
How'd you see Mikey?
Well, I saw it as sort of, well, if it was just two streets intersecting, that would be a cross.
Yeah.
So the to make this sort of space between houses, you need sort of double that. So you'd have two streets parallel to each other, and then two other streets parallel to each other, making a cross.
Oh, okay. So and like those kind of do exist. Like it's not like a cul-de-sac. It's like where there's like an island of like where like they usually put like a garden or something like that in there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think I see what you're meaning.
yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Like
But at
it's
the end of
not
the
quite
day,
a. Sorry.
all right, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's not quite a it's kind of like a what's a roundabout, but it's not. It's like a square roundabout.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, this information doesn't really have any bearing on the story.
Yeah.
It's just I was curious what your guys' visualization of this was because I was confused.
Yeah, and it sounds like all of us were kind of like hiccuping over this
Yeah, a little bit.
in various degrees.
But that's okay. It took maybe 4 or 5 drives for me to become attached. During the first weekend, I took my bike. What do they mean by first weekend? Like, do you mean like as soon as the weekend came along, I took my bike?
I think that's probably what it means, but yeah, I it could be made clearer.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
what I think they're trying to get across, but yeah.
I thought it was going to be like during the first weekend of summer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming just the next weekend that showed up, I did this thing.
Yeah, it stands to reason.
Mm-hmm. I probably visited Goliath about 50 times and saw him at least a million. I don't.
It does say like I got to this part as well, and it does say like right afterward, like over the course of I think he's meaning over the course of the years that he spent with Goliath. Like he visited him 50 times, or at least 50 times, and then saw him like because he saw him like twice a day on his ride home or on his drive home or whatever. He must have seen him at least a million times. So I think that's what that's trying to mean.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did the math in my actual thoughts.
Oh God.
So I'll
want
just
to
go
chime in here?
Yeah, I'll just chime in now.
Sure.
So a school year is roughly 180 days. So assuming that he saw Goliath from first grade to eighth grade, since he's a preteen.
Yeah.
So that's roughly 8 years, and then also assuming 2 times a day because going to school and coming back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That ends up only equaling 2,880 times.
Oh, wow.
Did you include high school as well?
No, I didn't, because in this story he's a preteen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it says that
from
Nair stayed in this town like until college and then moved away.
But he never went. He remember like after the incident, he switched sides of the bus and stuff like that. So that he couldn't see the house. So, yeah.
So it would be less than that 2,000 even.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, weird. There's an over exaggeration on how many times he saw the dog.
Yes, but regardless,
yeah.
The confusion is the fact that it said visited this many times and saw him this many times.
Especially how low the visits are compared to like the outlandish like time he saw him.
Mm-hmm. But it was basically sounding like Nair saw Goliath way more than visiting him. Meanwhile, which it does make sense now that you mentioned that, like you see him on the bus and shit. I wasn't thinking that.
Yeah,
I was thinking like he would visit him. Like he only saw, for some reason, I was in my mindset. I was thinking he only saw him when he visited him. But when he visited him, he saw him more than once per visit. I think it was confusing.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think this one would actually benefited from like a more generalized kind of thing, like not even like say a number of how many times you saw the dog, but like because like I visited him like at least 50 times, and I saw him like on a daily basis, kind of thing.
Well,
like
the number
like
isn't the
that,
problem. It could be fixed with just.
It is. It is by the merit that we're talking about it.
It's not. It's not.
Okay.
Number is not the problem.
Okay.
There's no context to the second number.
Yeah.
I probably visited Goliath about 50 times and saw him at least a million times, like passing by.
Yes, that would have helped.
There just needs to be something else there.
Yeah.
That would fix it. Because I don't mind the exaggeration. It's just that needs, a noun to it. Not a noun. Regardless, it needs more to it.
Yeah, it needs a few extra some context details.
Yeah. Next one. I heard Goliath's faint barking. Sorry, I heard Goliath's faint bark coming from the back of the house. I started panicking. I believe no one lived in the house, but apparently there was still a way to get inside. When I read back of the house, I was imagining Goliath was just in the backyard, not inside the back of the house.
Yeah.
So like a rewrite would be, I heard Goliath's faint bark coming from inside the back of the house.
Yeah.
Just so you can immediately know it's like, okay, he's inside the house, just right from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as it is, like that's what I initially thought. Like, okay, so he's out behind the house. But then he gets to the back of the house, and then it's like, oh, there's a door to the inside the house. Like, oh, okay, so he needs to get inside the house. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my last one, the shape under the drapes was clearly human. There was probably a hand poking out, scraping the floor with its fingernails, but that might have been my imagination. So the way it's worded, it almost seems like Nair's making this up. Just because it's like there was probably a hand poking out there. Like I understand. I know. Yeah. Let me finish.
Okay.
But the way that I would rewrite it is the shape under the drapes was clearly human. I think there was a hand poking out, scraping the floor with his fingernails, but it might have been my imagination.
Yeah, because it seems like the story, like especially this chunk of the story, there's a lot of like suppressed memory being recollected, or even possible false memory.
Yes, and it says that earlier before the sentence, saying like, I don't fully remember this, but I'm gonna remember as much as I can. It's just the way it's worded with there was probably a hand.
Yeah.
That's like as if you're saying he doesn't remember there being a hand, but there probably was one. Compared to him saying I think there was a hand, is like there's some vague memories of a hand there, so it's a little clearer.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's all I got for the grammar in yellow.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll go on to Stay Strong, Cultist. The actual thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to start with this one here. It took maybe 4 or 5 drives for me to become attached. During the first week, I took my bike, a bag of dog biscuits, and rode 5 minutes to the house. The dog was there, emerging from the shadows of the backyard. This was the first time I noticed how sad and scruffy he seemed. And reading this, I was like, oh gods, I'm going to need to hug my puppers by the end of the story, aren't I? And we'll get back to that. I'm just going to put a pin on that.
Okay.
So already starting, like, as soon as the dog's introduced, I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, God.
It's a dog and a creepypasta. Oh, this can't be good.
Oh, no. And then we move on to this one here. I remember, so this is like when he's down in the basement and like right before like shit hits the fan. It's like, I remember looking around and finding a Hershey's bar on the nightstand. It seemed really surreal at that time. And like reading through this part, like I was just like ditto on that. Like this story at this point is really surreal. Like there's so many strange little details, like as he's exploring the basement, which is to me, it felt was really good because it was telling this like this creepy half remembered account that the narrator experienced in their youth. So and that really came across in this part. Like it felt like I was like talking to Nair, like as an adult, and he was telling me about this story. Like it's the kind of thing that it's the kind of encounter or the kind of account that I like to hear from people. Like I like to like talk about with people, like when they're talking about creepy things that happen in their youth. Like I've definitely had those conversations with people in the past, and like they are one of the kind of creepy story tellings that I really enjoy. So this kind of like helped like garner that by like giving us all these weird little details and such. It just kind of, the story at this point like really left me kind of engrossed because I wasn't sure what the hell the story was all about. And but it was enticing enough for me to keep reading because I wanted to know what was going to happen next. Like I didn't know, like from basically start to finish, up until the end, or close to the end, I didn't know what was going on, like in terms of like what is the story leading up to.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed the kind of like surrealness of the recounting of the story. And then we get to this part, or to this particular sentence. Something inside me dies every time I imagine him waiting for me all those years. He never did anything wrong, and I felt bad for leaving him like this. Oof. Like, yeah, this story continued to hit me in the feels. So like, full disclosure, guys, like, and I think this has been brought up before, but I do not like, or I do not care very well for dogs being treated.
You hate dogs? How
No,
dare you?
no. I do not care for dogs in horror because most of the time they are killed off or hurt for the shock value or for like the emotional impact that will give. And I have a love of dogs. They are my favorite kind of pet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just so like innocent and loyal and like, god damn it. Like this really spoke to me because this speaks to me like on like, yeah, like whenever you take a dog to a kennel and like they don't know where you're going. Like I've had cases where like I've gone on vacation for 2 weeks off like elsewhere, like out of the province, and I've had to leave my dogs in a kennel. And when I come back, I'm always like there's a something in the back of my mind where I'm worried that they're gonna forget me. And like
years.
Yeah, because for them, like they have no concept of time. So
Yeah.
and like it's not even just horror stuff that does it. Like I hated that Futurama episode where like he left his dog out there on the street, like that dog that he had in like in the past, like Fry from Futurama. And the dog would wait at that same fucking sidewalk space for years, waiting for Fry, who never came back because he got stuck in a cryo chamber.
Yeah.
I was like, oh god, it's just I hate that. I hate it so much because the dog is just gonna stay there and like be loyal to its owner.
Mm-hmm.
And effectively, like Nair here is the adoptive owner of Goliath, or is the secondary owner to or like the secondary friend to Goliath. So yeah, this hits me in the feels a lot, and it also has this super weird, like yet kind of tied in and appropriate contrast to what seems like a really skeevy situation that went down that night for Nair. Like it's tugging at your heartstrings at least for me because of the dog. Like and like the dog is kind of innocent in this story, but the shit that happened to Nair is also kind of like a really like it's understandable why he didn't want to go back to that place. Because something kind of skeevy went down there that night when he went into that basement. And we'll I'm going to touch on that in my last kind of note here. So this is the last like kind of quote of the story, or this is the last like line or like last few lines of the story itself. So last year I visited my hometown and for the first time in forever took a look at the abandoned house, or rather the remains of it. It was demolished a few years prior, with only mountains of bricks and concrete foundation left. It felt so weird being there. As I suspected, Goliath was nowhere to be seen. I only found what looked like an unmarked grave in the backyard. And I was just like, well, that was quite possibly the saddest creepypasta I've ever read. Like, and I did hug my dogs after reading the story. Like, goddamn. And okay, the dog thing, like me being kind of like sad by the whole dog's like situation in the story. There is something I have to unpack here that's like halfway through the story and like continues on through the story and like is kind of the source of like why Nair left Goliath for years. The encounter with the man in the basement. So who seemingly owns the dog Goliath. I feel like you can take this two ways, like this encounter two ways. For me, reading it, I went straight for the skeevy horror, like the creepy like real world horror here, in which a young Nair was probably molested that night, and is now just recalling suppressed memories of the event. Like it's just as I was reading, I was like, oh no, oh god, like he doesn't like he gets attacked by the creature by the guy from behind. He blacks out. There's no struggle. There's no scream. He just wakes up the next morning in a different bedroom in the house, and then the guy just lets him leave. Like for some reason, it's just like it was there in my mind the whole time reading the story. And I was like, okay, so this is like super like real horror kind of stuff going on here. And then also there's this sad dog tale. But the other thing that kind of hit me as I was reading the story was it's regarding the blood that was mentioned, like the blood on his shirt, and then like lots of like a loss of blood that was signified by the doctor like later on in the events. So here's my first thing here. Really feel there should be some details as to the blood, like, and where it came from, because in the story we don't actually have any mention of the wound. There is blood on Nair's shirt when he wakes up. He's got a headache, neck pain, and back pain, but that's and the doctor, even at the doctor's office, they never show like where, and the doctor says that he has blood loss, but they never tell us where the wound was. So part of me initially went with the dog had bit its owner defending Nair as the man was trying to assault Nair. Sort of a conflict of two human, like two loyalties for the dog. Like the dog was choosing between them, like during like when they in that scuffle. And who knows, maybe as a result, the man did nothing to Nair, and that's why Nair was allowed to escape. Like why the man gave him a pass was because like the man realized he'd gone too far or something like that. I don't know. It's still kind of skeevy, but at least there's like a little bit like it makes the dog Goliath kind of out to be a hero in my mind, in my headcanon. The second idea I had is that there is mention of neck pain and like other aches and pains and stuff of that, and the blood is on his shirt, and that he suffered blood loss. So, and with the description and behavior of the homeless man, like in the kitchen and then like letting him go and stuff after during that, like in the next morning, I kind of want this to be that the homeless man was in fact a vampire. It coats the skeevy pill so it goes down better. Like it's not as creepy. It because there's an air of fantasy there. It gives a little bit more like buffer room for like how creepy this whole situation is. And like maybe Goliath is the vamp's Renfield, like watches over him during the day, kind of thing. And unfortunately, poor Nair, like he didn't get because he got too close to the dog and like was worried about him and went down into the basement where the man was residing. He wasn't turned by the bite, but he got drained a bit as a result. And that's why, like, he didn't turn into a vampire. He just got some blood siphoned from him. So there's two routes for me in my headcanon to take this. One is very real, like Baraska levels of creepy, and the other one is more like World of Darkness or vampire like kind of scenario here. And I don't know which one I like more, or I don't know which one I would want to actually be the case.
Well, I can poop on one of them real quick.
All right.
Every day at the crack of dawn, he would go out and buy meat for his dog. He paid with real money, so no one bothered giving him crap.
At the crack of dawn, right?
Yep.
Well, at the crack of dawn, that's still not like sun. Like he was basically like going, like he was risking every, like, I mean, you could say that as a vampire, like he had to purchase his meat like early because so like he wouldn't come out during the day. So maybe like he had some bit of buffer room during the crack of dawn to like get out before like the sun rose into the sky fully, to like go to the butcher when it opens up, because butchers usually open up pretty early. So he'd go there, be the first customer, pay in cash, get the meat, and then go back to the house before the sun rose fully. That's kind of like what I was like kind of headcanoning on the vampire side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because he never shows up during the day. Like he never does anything during the day except for the crack of dawn, which is still kind of it's a danger zone for vampires, but it's still feasible.
Yeah, and to lend more credence to the vampire, the mirror.
Yes.
Scene.
Yeah. You want to continue? Sorry.
So I have it here. Then it cuts to the mirror, or it might have being just some reflective surface. Either way, I turned around, saw the reflection of my terrified pale face and the couch behind me. The bedsheets were thrown aside, the dust still floating in the air. I swear it took maybe a few seconds. Something jumped at me. So
There's no mention of the guy in the reflection. It's just everything around him.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
that's another
the way
detail
I
that
saw that
Mhm,
is just
yeah.
there's so much dust you can't see the guy.
And that's the thing. Like this story kind of like is teetering on that ledge of like, is it real? Is it realistic horror, or is it like, is there a vampire here?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a really cool. Like that's what I kind of like about this story is that there's kind of like a teetering edge of like almost like a blur between reality and the surreal. And yeah, so yeah, that I was gonna I didn't have it in my notes, but I definitely wanted to bring up the fact about like there being a mirror there. I'm glad that you had that there, Mikey.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's there's little details in the story that like if you don't want to lean into the fact that this is probably just some homeless man that may have molested Nair, it might just be a vampire that, well, I guess for all intents and purposes, molested Nair. But in a not so skeevy way. I mean, it's still skeevy, it's still creepy, like in that way, but it's less so when
Yeah.
it's a vampire because they're not real. it's more fantastical.
Yeah. And the other thing that sort of works for Vampire is his virtually transparent skin.
Yeah, I mean, I could attribute that like his between his like scrawniness and like the and his his practically translucent skin. I could honestly just attribute to being a crackhead or some kind of a druggie. Like the skin is just like not healthy at all.
Or
But
the fact he never gets any sun.
exactly, yeah, he could be anemic in that, or no, I don't think anemic's the word, but yeah, like not getting much sun, so he's just got like a really pallid complexion as a result of being like a shut-in, basically.
He also never saw his face. He could be like albino or whatever, right?
Exactly, yeah. Well, we do see that his hair is all black and scraggly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's and usually albinos are like their hair is white as well as their skin, like they're completely albino.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like again, anybody who's like living basically inside of a house doesn't go outside because of the sun and such. Like, regardless, like even not being a vampire, you're gonna have like really pallid, like unhealthy skin as a result of the lack of vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the story's really weird, guys. Like for like because it teeters on that edge of like realism or realism horror or like vampire horror. And then we have poor little Goliath or poor big Goliath.
Yeah.
It kind of trapped in the middle, like kind of forming this buddy horror, this like tragic buddy horror.
It's not true.
I guess the or the horror aspect of the buddy horror is that Goliath, for all intents and purposes, is abandoned at the end of the story, at the end of these events, by Nair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so sad what happens to it. Like as like he's like he basically abandons him or like leaves him alone. And like yeah, it's just oh god, I have so many feelings about the story. But yeah, that's my actual thoughts honestly about the story was the sad dog angle, and also the is it vampires or is it just like a homeless molestation kind of thing. Those are my two like main thoughts on the story. So Mikey, would you like to continue?
All right. So my third potential thought, continuing yours, is that what if it's just a cursed mirror and the squatter was there, but he's actually the savior. So he saved the Nair from being basically sucked into the mirror.
I guess.
But in doing so, Nair bashed his head against the mirror and knocked himself out.
Yeah.
And lost a lot of blood.
Yep. That could be it. Yeah, maybe it's some, or like he says, it's some kind of reflective surface. Maybe it was like some kind of like, yeah, some kind of artifact. Not even like maybe not necessarily a mirror, but just a reflective artifact that like, yeah, sends you into the mirror zone. And really, this guy's just, he's an SNTF employee, isn't he?
He is now.
This is actually a green, like this is, for Delta Green fans. This is a green box basically, and he's the guy, the maintenance guy of the green box.
Yep.
God damn it! God damn it! The other idea that kind of came to mind, but it kind of fell flat halfway through the story, was like, what if Goliath? I was expecting, honestly, Goliath to be like some kind of like a shape changer of some kind. Like up until we see the guy on the bed, I was expecting him to be the guy on the bed, like who like during the day he's a dog, but then during the evening he's a man. But that kind of fell through later on.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point I was like, where's this story going? And I was like, oh God, it's going this route. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting third option there, Mikey.
Yep. All right. So onwards to my actual thoughts here. You see, I was one of those kids who believed they knew better than anyone else. Ones who end up volunteering for special cases and posting messages on Facebook about horrible things they believe no one cares enough about. And I'm just like, Nair's a preteen, so you have to be 13 years old to agree to Facebook's terms of service. So either Nair isn't a preteen, or he's violating Facebook's terms of service.
Or he's yeah, which is probably what he's doing. I mean, that happens on a regular. But yeah, it's
which makes him the villain in the story now.
Honestly, though, like he didn't need that explanation about like of like I was the kind of person that would like jump on those situations. I mean, it's a good example of that for that kind of mentality. But honestly, like he's just a headstrong preteen who thinks he knows more. He thinks he knows more than he actually knows. Like that's something that teens have, or like preteens have. It's like, shut up, Mom. I know more than you.
I've alienated all of our preteen audience.
Good.
So evil.
I'm gonna regret that.
Yeah,
our numbers are just gonna dive.
All right. So my next one here. That night, with a bag full of useless stuff I believed to be rescue gear, I left the house when everyone was asleep and rode my bike across the street. I was like,
to his house. Yeah, I remember like reading that as like, okay, clearly it doesn't mean across his house. It's got to be across from the abandoned place. But it does sound an awful lot like he just rode across the street from his house.
Yep.
Also, I do like the meta, or like him like recalling now, like as an adult, recalling like, oh yeah, that bag was probably full of just useless stuff. But at the time, I thought I was like rescuing Goliath, and I was going to rescue Goliath with all these like useless things.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, it could probably just be changed to and rode my bike down the street. Probably easily fix that, because we've established that there's the streets are crossways. Anyway, so next one. I couldn't see the stairs under my feet, and the sheer terror of not knowing where I was going made my lungs and intestines shrink. And that's when he pooped himself.
Yep. I mean, I knew, like, I feel like that's probably like, it's a weird way of saying it, but I think that's like that he's like getting butterflies in his stomach, like that kind of feeling. Okay. That's what I got out of that. I knew, though, as soon as I read that, I was like, Mikey's going to take this literally.
No,
as soon as I read that, I was like, Mikey, if you don't have a note here, I'm going to be very disappointed. Like, I got it, but yeah.
All right. And the next one here. My head was probably filled with cotton, because I can't remember if Goliath was still barking or not. My note here is, and that's when he became a stuffed doll. He couldn't scream, and now just sits on the wall.
Or, crazy thought, it might be that it's an analogy for him suddenly like just not being able to hear anything because he's like hyper focusing on something. But he's probably just turned into a doll.
Yep.
That makes more sense. It does say cotton.
Mikey, you do you, boo. I'm not even rolling sand anymore. I'm full blown cultist mentality here, like mad certainty. I've got the feet mad certainty.
All right. So the Next one note I have here is, according to my family doctor, I lost a lot of blood that night, but it wasn't anything dangerous. So I decided
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I decided to try and figure out exactly how much loss of blood isn't dangerous. So basically, if you lose 20% of your blood, you can go into shock.
Yeah.
And at 40% loss of blood, you die.
Yeah.
So that means that my guesstimate was between 10 and 19% of his blood was lost.
It's like,
But he passed out as well. It could have been after the
it
shock.
could have been, or it could have been the full 20%.
Yeah.
It's just like World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, where you're a vampire and you can just you can lure somebody into a back alley and then start drinking their blood, and you just have to make sure you don't kill them. You don't drain their completely down to their life bar, because then they just enter a stupor and just wander off. for a game analogy for the gamer in yellow.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. No, it's like I said, he didn't turn Nair into a vampire. He simply drained him a little bit, to get his energy up. Hence why he's not more human looking, because he looks a little bit more ghoulish because he only took a little bit.
Okay. Another interesting thing that I found out, that is at around age 5 or 6, kids have the same amount of blood as an adult.
Wow.
And on average, humans have about 3 liters of blood in them.
Yeah.
So that's why it's safe to donate blood, because you donate about a pint of blood, which is about half a liter, which ends up equaling 16.7%. So nowhere near 20%.
This has been Blood Facts by Mikey. The E stands for evil. You know what's funny? I know on other podcasts, there was a conversation at Gen Con where we were all we were all lined up waiting for a seminar to happen, and someone started a conversation of how many pints of blood or how many liters of blood are in a goat for sacrifice.
Wow.
I remember that clearly. I was in that line when when some folks from some of the other gaming podcasts that we have on the show occasionally started talking about that. I think that was Noah from the Maple Syrup Blood Money podcast and other podcasts. And they just started talking about how many liters of blood there were in there, how many liters of blood you could drain out of a goat
for sacrificial purposes.
Exactly. So it's just strange how blood facts keep popping up here and there over the course of the podcast podcasting spheres.
Well, it's good info to know.
Yeah, I'm glad that I can know that I will not if I lose 20% of my blood, I will go into shock. That is good to know.
Stay around that 18 and 19.
All right. So my next note here, which I think is also my last until we hit final thoughts, is it was demolished a few years prior with only mountains of bricks and the concrete foundation left. I'm pretty sure that if they demolished the house, they wouldn't leave behind a mountain of bricks. The foundation would likely still be there, but they wouldn't leave the demolished portion of it.
It depends on the circumstances. We had a cottage on near our cottage that they demolished, and I think for about 2 years the piles of rubble sat before somebody finally bought the place, and then they cleared out the property and built built a new property. I think it does depend on certain circumstances. So it might, and it said it had been demolished for a few years, so maybe it had only been a year and a half or 2 years. But it could have sat there. But yeah, usually at most, when a building gets demolished, they do usually take away the all the stuff that isn't the cement concrete foundation. But they might have kept some of the bricks might have been piled up as well. They would have just gotten rid of all the other junk, roofing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of a little weird that like it's been like sitting there in a heap of for like years. Like usually, I'm surprised it wasn't just like the foundation or just a vacant lot
Yeah.
at that point.
Like, it was demolished, so it was demolished for a reason, which is probably someone bought the lot with the idea of putting a house up there.
And then, or somebody bought the property hoping to sell it to someone, and then like the property value or the bust or the bubble burst, and people suddenly weren't buying property, so now he's stuck there with that property, and he doesn't have the money to like remove things from it, so he's just hoping that somebody will buy the property from them.
Yeah, it's really just the most traumatic thing is just the amount of money that guy lost on buying that property and trying to resell it.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing.
Oh God, what if it was actually like, what if the homeless guy wasn't homeless? He actually owned the property, and he was like, he'd been trying to like DIY like flip the house, and then eventually he's like, fuck it, I can't flip this house, so I'm just gonna bulldoze it down, and then tried to sell it, and he couldn't, so he just like he's just gone, he just vanished, he just left.
And that's why Goliath took him back there to bury him there, because that's like the most important thing he was trying to do in his life.
I would love to hear your thoughts on like that, Matt.
That's it, honestly.
Because honestly, like that was like my go-to. Obviously, was that like that was the dog. Like that's the dog is in that grave, and it made me real sad. Like it added some conclusion. Like there's some closure there. It's like, all right, well, the dog waited, probably waited for you, Nair, forever, and then died of old age, and then.
Wow, you're just throwing Nair under the bus on this?
Well, because I would literally, that would like, I would feel that shitty if I had done that.
Dude, it wasn't his dog. It was the other guy's dog.
Emotionally, it was his dog.
To him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I know it's not his dog, but I mean, like, emotionally, it was his dog because he spent so much time with that dog, like on the off hours. And again, he did this whole stupid
abandon the dog because.
No, but the dog would probably like I could envision like the reason why like he went to the other side of the bus was so he couldn't see the dog going over to the fence, waiting for him. Like I was like that's what like in my head, like, and again I'm probably speaking from a very emotional opinion right now on that, but like I could just keep seeing that dog waiting at the fence post for his friend that would give him treats and stuff, and he never shows up.
Yeah, but he still had love and affection through his owner.
He did.
It's not like he was a sad, depressed puppy and he just stayed there forever.
No, and you're right. That is actually one of the glimmers of strange hope, is that the homeless man / vampire did seem like a good owner. Like, cause so like, I feel like it's still sad for me though, because like the dog probably thought he had another friend, but then the friend left him, kind of thing. And like, it's that like, yeah, he's got his vampire homeless friend, like his master, but he had another friend that no longer was his friend. And like, I get really sad when I think about that.
Yeah, but he's not friendless because he still has the owner.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
All right. So going with Gammon and Yellow's thoughts, what if the dog is a reverse were-dog? So every full moon, the dog turns into a human.
My God.
Uh-huh.
Then that way, the dog could theoretically dig the grave for the vampire.
When the vampire finally like gets killed by a slayer, and the dog would just be assumed, like they just assume that the dog is just like maybe he tried to like they just a dog. Like maybe the vampire's like, no, save yourself, get out of here, like you got to go hide. I'll deal with these hunters. And then vamp gets killed, and the dog goes over like to his master, turns into a human, takes the body, the ashes or the body, the bones or whatever, and buries them in the back of the property, and then just kind of like goes off to live the rest of his life.
And becomes the littlest hobo.
Oh my God, no! The littlest hobo, but as an Irish wolfhound and not a German Shepherd.
Yes.
Only our Canadian fans are going to know that what we're talking about when we talk about the littlest hobo.
Or anyone who has access to,
to
Google.
YouTube. Anyone listening to this, check out the littlest hobo. It is I don't know if it's any good because I'm clearly speaking through rose-colored glasses, but it was like a fun little show about a German Shepherd that would just go across provinces helping helping people in need. He was the littlest hobo. He was the bestest boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So onwards to Gamer in Yellow.
Yeah.
All right. My first note
So I
is
just dead air. Just nothing.
is done. I have nothing. First one is just in regards to him being an Irish Wolfhound.
Mhm.
A friend of ours would be quite happy that there's a Irish Wolfhound in the story.
Yeah, Captain Solenum would definitely approve of the dog select story.
That's his favorite dog breed, and nothing bad happened to the dog too. So
Sure. I mean, again, even if the grave, like, going from my side of it, even if the dog, like if the grave is the dog's, which in my headcanon, that's the dog. But
it is.
It may not have been like a tragic end. He might have just died of old age. Like
exactly.
dogs die
That's
of.
the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
It's not that he was killed or nothing. It's been decades since Nair's been there. Dogs only live so long.
Yeah. No, they only live about 13 to 20. Like 15 or 16 is like a venerable age for a dog.
Yeah, and
I think 20 is like ancient. Sorry.
Yeah, and he was not a pup when he saw him. He was a master dog.
Yeah. So yeah, he may have only had a few more years left before he died of old age, and then his master buried him. At least his master buried him with like some ceremony. Like he didn't just like. I'm not gonna lie. I was really terrified by the point. But right before we got to the grave, I was terrified that he was gonna go to the back of the property and find a skeleton of a dog, like just unceremoniously died in the backyard.
But that would be terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he still had someone that was actually that cared about the dog enough to actually fully bury him and everything.
Yeah, there's so many there's so many mixed feelings though I have with the story because it's skeevy, or is it? Like
it's not.
It's no. I know it's really weird though because like from one perspective it could be really like this could be like suppressed memories of like molestation, but it could also be the vampire thing, or maybe nothing happened. Maybe the dog prevented something from happening. Like maybe because again we don't have details on like where the wound was on either Nair or the homeless man. So
it could have been something as simple as like Nair's in this dude's basement and he's trying to sleep underneath the sheet to get some sleep, and then he hears a noise and he's like "Wah!" and he just jumps out of bed scared, bumps into Nair, who bumps into the shiny object, cracks his head open.
Or gets a nosebleed.
That's where the blood loss is. Yeah. No, it's a huge amount of blood loss. It's not from a nosebleed.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, he just like busted his head open a little bit.
Yeah. So he's like, "Oh shit, that's a kid," and then he like tends to wounds.
Yeah.
And puts him in a bed just to lay him down, and then he wakes up, and then he just runs away.
Yeah, and heck,
the entire thing could just be purely mundane.
I'm totally with you on that. Like the story has that like. Again, blurred line, like teetering the edge, like, is it this or is it that? And you could like, it's open to interpretation as to what's going on here.
For sure.
And I want to feel like my brain immediately went to the skeevy stuff, but I want to believe that it was, well, because like I like when it's a creepypasta first off. So like,
yeah.
And like the setup was there in some of the details. So,
I mean, you say that, but like, if you go in with that mindset, you can make anything skeevy.
I mean, that's true also. But so, I mean, that's all. Yeah. Again, it is a matter of. Well, I mean, it is a matter of. Yeah. It's open to interpretation. It's a matter of opinion. So, like, I walked into it going into a dark place because we're reading a creepypasta. You apparently went in with like just no preconceptions, just reading it at face value. Which, God bless for you to have that kind of opinion for it or viewpoint for it.
Yeah, that's how I tend to do it.
That's fair.
So I didn't have time to have preconceptions. I read this morning.
I sent you the link Sunday, gamer.
Yeah. You reminded me last night. I'm like, oh shit, right, I should start that. And then I started it, and then I got halfway through, and then
wow.
Dog. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I woke up this morning, and then I'm playing Warframe, and then I'm like, oh, it's 11. Oh shit! I gotta finish reading that.
Do you want me to keep this in?
And then I'm here.
Like,
I don't care.
Okay, I just like. Do you want like how much of the curtain do we want to peel back for our podcast?
I mean, that's fine. I don't give a shit.
All right, fair. Yeah. Okay. Well, it then like even if like like you're reading this like, oh, I just gotta read this thing quickly. It's like, oh, Okay, this is actually. I mean, there's some creepy stuff here, but like it's fine.
Yes. So my next one, I saw the dog every day before and after school, sleeping, walking, or just standing near the chain link fence and observing speeding cars. At this point in the story, I was wondering if the dog is just living with the ghosts of his previous owners or something, and they're still
Right?
feeding him and such. Because you
Yeah.
never see anything, you just see the dog. Also, it's a shame that Nair didn't ask if anyone else saw the dog, because for all we know, it's all in Nair's head.
Fuck. Like the dog's been a ghost the whole time. Like, that's the thing. Like this story took just kept I didn't know what to expect from the story as it was going. Like it just kept.
Like he never brought a
Yeah.
friend to see the dog too, which is
Yeah.
something you would do in that situation, right?
You'd think so, yeah. Unless he didn't really have many
"Here's this
friends.
cool
but-
dog. Come on, Jimmy, let's go see him. All right.
yeah.
Or he's like, no, my name's Ted, and then he leaves.
Fuck
Yeah.
you. But yeah, no, that would be really interesting. Is like, yeah, this abandoned house, and there's a dog in it, and it's a ghost dog, and the owner is a ghost owner, and like he freaked, like the whole thing, like in the basement, he freaked out, and like smashed his face, fell down. And then the ghost spirited him up to one of the bedrooms to sleep off the issue, and then like that's why like there's no physical interaction with the or direct interaction with the owner or the dog.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And his owner's name is Casper.
Yeah, clearly, yeah. and that's why there's a grave. That grave is not fresh. It's not even like a few years old. It's been it's been decades old.
Yeah, it was there
Like,
back when he was a kid.
We
too.
just never saw it. Yeah,
Yeah, he never
my
went back.
Oh, so let's see. Let's recap here. We have skeevy, realistic horror, like homeless man may have molested Nair, kind of thing. We have the dog was the Renfield to a vampire that drained Nair's blood. There is why am I getting? Hang on, there's a notification. Okay. There is the man and the dog are basically a maintenance crew for a cursed artifact that's in the basement that will like send you into the mirror dimension. The dog's a reverse werewolf.
He's a wereman.
Yeah, he's a wereman. Which is kind of hilarious that you said that, because were is literally, I think, a Latin term or like another like a term for, basically just translated. Were means man.
So it's a man.
It's a man.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I know that's the same for. I know that's like for lycanthrope. I think that's what that means is basically. And I think werewolf, it's like man wolf.
Man wolf. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So just man.
Would it be a dog were?
Or it'd be a canis, or like a were canis, or a were dog. Because you said
Yeah,
dog.
but that
You
could
said dog
be-
were.
No, but because it's backwards.
I know. You're right. God damn it. Oh god. And we don't know where this takes place. This clearly takes place in Michigan. This is the Michigan Dog Man.
Oh, there you go.
Bam. Nailed it.
it.
We have added on to the mythos or we have inadvertently added this to the mythos of the Michigan Dog Man mythos. But yeah, no. So, like, there's like so many different iterations for this, like, and depending on like how you go into this story and like your opinion or your like kind of perspective on things, like there's the story is very open to interpretation.
It is. Like, you just listed 5, and that would be 6 with mine as well.
Yeah, 6 with the ghost dog,
so
or
many.
with the literally a haunted house.
Mhm.
God damn.
Many things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll move on to my next one.
Okay.
This one I just wrote down because I just like the way that it's put, the way it's described.
Sure.
The only light sources were the street lamps, and occasional flickers from faraway houses. I listened as the wind swept the leaves from the sidewalk, simultaneously feeling like an action hero and pissing my pants in terror.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny and also like very
Descriptive and
Yeah.
moody.
Mm.
Yeah, because it's like,
Really
it's a cold November evening, like it's fall, like the wind's sweeping everything around, and he felt so badass while also being terrified at the same time.
Mhm.
Like, I'm gonna save my puppy. God damn it, I'm terrified.
I'm glad I also brought extra pants in my bag.
I'm glad I wore the brown pants.
Mhm. Okay, right. And then my last one is the last note is kind of along the same lines as the one I just said, of enjoying something being described, just in a different way.
Mhm.
I felt as if I was looking at a giant skull with a pair of black windowless gaps for eyes and a decrepit railing for teeth. I just really like the descriptor of that for the house.
Yeah.
It's flowery, but it gives a lot of information, and you know exactly what the house looks like.
Yeah, like you can tell what kind of house that is.
Yeah, a lot of creepypastas that we read, they go on some flowery descriptor. That's all fancy words and all that, but it doesn't really give you a good visualization of it. Where this is flowery and kilo, but you 100% know what it looks like too.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably because this one like also like it gives the flowery detail, but it also gives you the context of what the flowery detail is towards. Like the window, the broken windows form the eye sockets, and
Yeah.
the teeth are the railing on the porch, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Just works well.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that.
Mm-hmm. But until final thoughts, that's all I got.
All right, well, nice segue onto final thoughts.
Alrighty then.
So this story led me down a journey. I don't know where it was going, or I didn't know where it was going, except for somewhere sad, but also a little bittersweet. Like the ending, is kind of a little bittersweet, like by the end, and it definitely pulled at my heartstrings on account of my own personal affections for our four-legged friends. It's effectively a creepy. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I like cats too. You're right.
Yeah, dogs, cats living together, nice area. It is an effective creepypasta in that it blurs the line between skeevy real horror and surreal, morose nightmare. Like it's just
really hanging on that skeevy aspect.
I'm like for at least I feel like because of all the different like perspectives we got on in our discussion here, like there's going to be a percentage of people who are going to take this. Oh, it was a homeless man that just molested the guy or molested the kid. Just as much as like there might be a percentage that's going to think, oh, like vampire or haunted house or like it was actually nothing bad.
Okay, fair enough. I just didn't go skeevy at all.
That's fair.
Like, I think the massive blood loss was like part of that, because why would there be so much blood loss during like skeevy events?
That is what threw me off. Like that's why I got I got more of the vampire angle. But like leading up to that, I was like, oh god, this is gonna go bad. like I'm also a fan of true crime horror and like and like I listen to a lot of like real accounts of like creepy stuff that happens to real people.
Yeah.
And so like that's I might have been in that mode while reading the story.
Fair enough.
Again, the story is very open to interpretation. It needs some editing and some additional details. I feel like where like I want to know where those wounds are on the person. Like where did the blood leave? Like
or it's
like,
something weird where there are no wounds.
That would be again like that kind of even merits to like the vampire angle, because he just like siphoned the blood through his skin.
Like through like blood magic and shit.
Exactly, yeah. Like through his skin or through his mouth kind of thing. Like, that would have been like super cool. But like I feel like there should be some extra details in the story that we just didn't get. That would maybe clear up a few things, unless you want to leave it up to interpretation. But I feel like the blood loss thing might want to add a detail or two.
Yeah, because that whole section is open to interpretation. We have 6 different stories outcomes that we came up with.
Exactly, and I mean sometimes that's what the author's looking for. Maybe sometimes that is what they want the reader to be left with, is like what's going on. They want them to leave them with a conversation, like we've been having this entire time.
Yes.
But yeah, like I think for like a tighter story, a few extra details, and then like the editing, we brought up in the Grammar Inquisition. There's just a few minor like typos and like spelling mistakes that can easily be fixed in like a run through. And maybe just to make again like the another thing on like adding details or like giving some clearer details with the outskirts of town descriptor, like the intersecting roads and such, like that kind of thing. So with all of this in mind, I'm going to, the majority of it would be a recommendation. Like it's a partial recommendation, but on like the higher end of a recommendation. And the reason why it's partial is just because I would probably also give a warning as to the subject matter at hand. Like personally, just because like I was kind of skeeved out a little bit by the end, and also like it has a bittersweet ending. about like the ending, because like depending on how you interpret what happened at the end, there's a lot of interpretation in this story. And so I would recommend this story, but like let the person know that like there's a dog involved and there's also a homeless man and a child. So go into that how you will. But otherwise, like the goal was achieved. It was creepy, but it was also bittersweet sad. So it left a mark on me emotionally, which is the telling of a good story. Like, so I recommend just with like maybe a warning to whoever I recommend it to, because it was kind of creepy and was effective. So I'll shut up. Mikey, go.
Well, for me, I was when this reading it and waiting for the action or the event of creepiness to happen, and it takes a while to get there, and then he enters the basement, and then we get the weird mirror followed by him losing consciousness, waking up in a strange bed, and then we meet a possible vampire.
Yep.
And
Then
to
he's
me,
left.
yeah, to me, basically, I want more detail.
Yeah, like it's told the way the story's told. It has that kind of like you're talking to a friend who tells you this creepy story that happened to them as a kid, kind of thing.
You can only remember so much.
Yeah, and so like, and most of those stories don't have like a very like a climactic like fight or like any kind of real action. It's just like a creepy story that they like noped out of or they left right afterward. It also kind of, now that you're saying that, it does kind of remind me of like of what like a lot of Lovecraft stories end. They just end very anticlimactically, like with the investigator fainting and then waking up in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, basically with all the lead up to this, I wanted more creepy factor, which I wasn't getting from the stories because my mind didn't go skeevy at all.
Fair
enough.
And so I'm just not recommending this.
All right, fair enough. Gamer?
For me, first off, I might fight you a little bit on this cultist in regards to like your suggestion of a trigger warning, because I don't personally think it's necessary, because for you, your whole issue with it is the fact that you assumed that the dog was murdered.
No, I wasn't assuming the dog was murdered. My thing is that I again, like the trigger warning suggestion is also just because like it comes from a personal opinion, because I don't like seeing dogs hurt or even like dead. Like even if like it was like
It wasn't hurt though, ever.
Emotionally, I felt hurt. Like I felt like the dog was hurt. I got triggered by the boy abandoning the dog, like by like leaving, like, and like the way it was talking about like the dog, like him like not seeing the dog ever again after that event. Like I got triggered from that, like personally, and that is a personal thing. And
I'll say this though,
yeah.
If the homeless man was being an asshole to the dog, yes, I would agree 100%, because no one loves him. Only this kid loved him. However, the owner seemed fine. The dog was happy there.
Yeah.
So he wasn't truly abandoned.
That's true. And honestly, this discussion had like, this is why I bumped my thing up from being a sad ending to a bittersweet ending, because like we do get some closure about the dog, but his like, and yeah, he was abandoned by the kid, but he wasn't abandoned. Like he had an owner and stuff like that. It's just I was like I didn't like I got triggered by the breakup between the boy and the dog is really what it was.
Yeah.
And again, it's full disclosure, personal opinion, but like that's why I added it. That's why we have separate opinions on things. So yeah. So I just don't like dogs like getting even a little bit like emotionally or physically hurt in stories, or even like being brought up and like having this kind of thing, because like again, abandonment even by like somebody who's not their owner but being left like after like years of like interaction and stuff like that still hurts me like emotionally. So I can't help how I feel, man. So
I know,
that's why I'm adding, that's why I put it in there. So
okay, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
But in regards to the story as it is, I like that the story shows how dark things can be through the eyes of a child. Because, like, for me, when I was reading this, there's nothing fucked up at all going on in this story. But until we know that nothing's fucked up, everything looks fucked up.
Yeah.
Because, like, is it a ghost? Sure. Is it a murderer with a knife? Maybe. Who knows? But, like, as soon as we get the bigger picture, it all lines up, at least for me.
That's an interesting
Like
perspective. Yeah. Like,
I really
I
like
think,
the way that progressed through the story.
yeah.
It was again, to me, it was a very mundane story where nothing bad really happened, but through the eyes of a child, things could be real fucked up.
Yeah. It actually, that's very apt for like, so like the game system Little Fears plays on that kind of narrative where like, in the original version of Little Fears, everything that the characters encounter is supposed to be mundane at the end of the story, because the kids' belief and like their imagination is what's fueling the fear and the monsters and terror. So
Really?
the most mundane stuff, like in the original iterations of that setting and of that system, all the monsters are just supposed to be allegories for mundane things. And it's just the kids' like nightmarish imaginations that are running wild that causes like the monsters to come out and like the things to be interpreted as monsters and horror and dark stuff. So you kind of like, I like that, like how you're interpreting that. Like it's the story leading, and I guess I was just kind of caught in the weeds of that throughout the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you actually were able to break out of that by the end of the story.
Yeah. As soon as you saw the dog, I was like, oh no, the dog. Oh no.
Yeah, I went full emotional mode.
Yeah.
Which again, like,
yeah,
I
am a soulless husk that has no feelings, so I can just go straight through that. But no.
Or you're just a little bit more mature than I am.
I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. But regardless, I did really like the story, and I'm going to give it a full recommendation. I haven't read many stories where, again, because this is all open to interpretation, I haven't read many stories where the events are possibly entirely mundane with nothing bad happening at all, but I was still creeped out along the way because I was in the head of the child, and through his eyes, everything was fucked up.
Yeah. I just realized this is the freaking Scooby-Doo scenario. It's like...
yeah, it is.
God damn it. It's like, it was Mr. Jenkins the whole time. This is why. Like, that, I just realized that's the mentality you were going in on this with.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, we have been playing...
The story itself just tells you. It's like, yeah, this happened.
I know, but like...
It just says, like, the homeless guy was fine. He just went out every morning, bought shit for his dog.
Yeah, but there's still, like, things about that you could interpret to be, like, weird. But, like, yeah, or you could just take it to be, like, mundane as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's why I like. It's so interesting, this story, like, because we like a week or two ago, or some weeks ago, we read Cainmak's last story, or like other story, which was the baby one, where it was like very tropey. Like, we knew what the trope was, but we could appreciate it.
Yeah.
This one, I couldn't really pinpoint any kind of tropes. I just didn't know it was
anything.
I really just, it was just a journey because I did not know where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know where the story was going to go. Like, and I still don't know where the story went. Like, that's how open to interpretation it is.
It was like being in a spooky maze, like a Halloween-esque maze. And there's multiple exits that all lead to different things. Like, this is the skeeve lane. This is the ghost alleyway. Like, these are all different ways.
Is the vampire's lair.
Exactly. These are all the different ways that it can exit. But when you actually exit, it's just a normal exit sign, and you get out and you realize that you're in a haunted house.
Yeah, like it opens up to different avenues. Yeah, like you start at point A, then you go in, and then there's like a fork, like a several like route fork in the path that you can take, and each one takes you to a different like perspective, like a different like a theme of like horror, and then they all taper back to to a singular path at the very end, and to like and then you're out of the maze, and it's back to reality.
Yeah, that's really what it felt like.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now that I'm like visualizing that, yeah, and yeah. It's yeah.
Nice.
I don't know what else to say. So, and it's your turn. So that's why I'm trying to stop myself.
I mean, I'm done. I said my piece.
Okay. So then, yeah, I guess, I feel like maybe if you're a dog, like if you really like dogs, go into this cautiously, but go into it. So like that's my that's how I'd recommend it. Mike, or like Mikey, doesn't recommend it, and Gamer fully recommends it. It really is just a story that is open to interpretation.
Mhm.
So,
Depending on how you interpret it, you'll either
Yeah.
be grossed out, freaked out, or just
sad.
appreciative or sad.
Yeah, appreciative, sad. Like
Just roll the dice.
it's
You
a very
could get
complex.
anything.
Yeah, it really does depend on your outward on your mood going in, I think.
You
So,
might, yeah.
and it can pull like various things as a result of that, depending on how you're viewing the story. So, it's a
I'm really
complex.
curious.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry?
really curious which of us are quote unquote right. Like when or if Cainmak listens to this recording, I wonder if they're gonna be like, no, that's wrong. Yeah, that one person nailed it.
Yeah, I would
Like,
be Cainmak if you're listening,
all of us
and
are wrong.
if you would like to send us another email about our discussion of your story and let us know like your opinion on our opinion. Like,
Opinionception.
legitimately, I would love to hear back because I'm
Yeah.
curious as to what exactly the fuck is going on here.
I'm guessing the canon story is vampire.
I mean, we'll see if we get some things point to that, but we'll see.
I'm locking my vote in that it was all mundane, nothing bad happened.
Personally, I want to go with the vampire one myself. As much as I was kind of like harping on the skeevy bit, I feel like the vampire the with the blood is the aspect of the blood and like the loss thereof. I feel like vampire is probably the route that happened, but I'd be really interested to see what actually the situation is here.
And I mean, with the skeeve, depending on how fucked up the person initiating the skeeve is, there could be massive blood loss as well. So you could also be right. But
yeah, well, like I said, like I envision like maybe the blood that like was on his shirt was from like the dog biting his owner because like the guy was attacking his friend, his new friend, kind of thing, and then that's why like he let him go like so casually
because he didn't want the dog to attack him again.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, just get out of here. Like, yeah, I really the story was very complex. Like, it seems like it's very complicated. For your opinion on it, and like, but all in all, mostly a recommendation toward it. So, yeah, there we go. That was this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below. Honestly, like anybody else who's read the story and has some opinions on it themselves that are like different or similar to ours, by all means, comment in the sections below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, YouTube, Facebook, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter, so you can talk to us there about it. Mikey is at the E Stands for Evil. Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W because his name is too long.
Yes, it is.
And I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas or other internet spooky stories that you'd like us to discuss on the show, or let us know like how we're doing, like how like if you listen to this episode and you really have some kind of like questions or like some if you want to like start a conversation via email, by all means send us one. If you'd like to help support the show financially, you can go to Patreon, look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis, and select the backer tier. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, and extra content. To our patrons that are already helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to the listeners of our show and the authors of these stories, thank you guys immensely, because without your listenership, we really wouldn't have much of a show. And without your stories to tug at our heartstrings or terrify us or creep us out, we really wouldn't have much of a show. So thank you. We wouldn't be having this discussion. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.